The Unfazed Mind. This audiobook is your guide to mastering the art of resilience and developing an unfazed mind. In a world full of chaos and setbacks, discover how to stay centered and transform challenges into opportunities. As you listen, you'll unlock the ancient secrets of emotional sovereignty, equipping yourself to face life's storms with unwavering resolve. The power to thrive is already within you. Claim it now. Introduction. Let's face it. How many times have you felt crushed by life's setbacks? The promotion that slipped away, the relationship that crumbled, or the dream that seemed to shatter right before your eyes. If you're nodding right now, you're not alone. But here's the truth that most people miss. These moments of adversity aren't your enemies. They're your greatest teachers. Think about water for a moment. When it hits an obstacle, it doesn't stop or break down. It simply flows around it, finding new paths, adapting without losing its essence. This isn't just some poetic metaphor. It's the blueprint for unshakable resilience. The ability to face life's challenges without being emotionally derailed isn't just a skill, it's a superpower. Most people spend their lives as emotional hostages, letting every criticism, setback, or failure dictate their state of mind. They give away their power to external circumstances, turning themselves into victims of their environment. But you're about to learn something different. You're about to master the art of emotional sovereignty, the ability to maintain your course regardless of what life throws at you. This isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about developing the mental toughness to choose your responses rather than being controlled by them. When you stop giving a fuck about things that don't serve your growth, you reclaim the energy needed to build something extraordinary. I'm not here to coddle you with feel-good platitudes. This journey will challenge you. It will push you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. But I know, with absolute certainty, that you have everything it takes to transform into someone who faces life's storms with unwavering resolve. The power to change your life has always been within you. You've probably felt it before, those moments of clarity when you knew you were capable of more. Now it's time to turn that potential into reality. I believe in you, not because of blind optimism, but because I've seen countless others make this transformation. You're next. Let's begin. Part 1. Building your mental foundation. Chapter 1. Own your reality. Meet James, a talented software developer who spent years watching his dreams slip through his fingers. Every morning, he'd arrive at work with a familiar weight on his shoulders, armed with a fresh list of reasons why success seemed to evade him. If only my boss would recognize my potential, he'd think. If the economy wasn't so unstable, he'd mutter. If my family had better connections, he'd sigh. When James was passed over for a promotion for the third time, he fell into his usual pattern. He blamed the company's politics, his manager's favoritism, even his colleagues' brown-nosing. But something different happened that evening. As he sat in his car, rehearsing all the reasons why the world was against him, he caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. 20 years of excuses stared back at him. That moment changed everything. James realized he'd spent 2 decades as the narrator of his failures, rather than the author of his success. Every explanation he'd crafted, every finger he'd pointed, had been a brick in the wall between him and his potential. While he was busy blaming his circumstances, others were busy changing theirs. This is where most people get stuck. They become experts at explaining why things aren't working, masters of justifying their current situation. It's comfortable there, in that space where nothing is your fault. But comfort is often the enemy of growth. The truth? Life isn't fair. Some people start with advantages you don't have. Some obstacles are genuinely unfair. But here's what separates those who break through from those who break down. They stop wasting energy on what they can't control and redirect it to what they can. Personal accountability isn't just taking blame, it's claiming power. When you say, "This is my reality, and I'm responsible for changing it," something extraordinary happens. The energy you once spent crafting excuses becomes fuel for solutions. The time invested in blame transforms into time invested in growth. James began applying for roles at other companies while simultaneously improving his skills through online courses. Instead of complaining about his manager's favoritism, he sought feedback on his weaknesses. Rather than lamenting his lack of connections, he started building them, one LinkedIn message at a time. Within 6 months, he landed a senior position at a better company, not because the world suddenly became fair, but because he stopped waiting for it to be. Your turn. It's time to shift from explaining to executing, from blaming to building. Here's your challenge, and I've made it as straightforward as possible. Take out a piece of paper right now. At the top, write down one problem that's been holding you back, something you've been blaming others for. Below it, list 3 specific actions you can take starting today to address it. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. For example, problem: I'm stuck in a dead-end job. Actions: update my resume tonight. Apply to 5 jobs before bed. Message 1 industry professional on LinkedIn. Keep it simple. Keep it specific. Most importantly, keep yourself accountable. The moment you stop explaining why you can't and start planning how you will, everything changes. Your life is waiting for you to take the helm. Chapter 2: The Art of Letting Go. Let me tell you about Rachel, a brilliant marketing executive whose career I watched transform after one crucial realization. She carried a burden that many of you might recognize: a deep-seated resentment toward her former business partner, who had taken credit for her groundbreaking campaign 3 years ago. This wasn't just any campaign. It was the one that could have launched her into the industry's spotlight. Instead, her partner presented it as his own work during a crucial meeting while Rachel was home with the flu. By the time she returned, the narrative was set, and her contribution had been reduced to a footnote. You might be carrying something similar right now. That promotion someone else claimed through office politics. The family member who betrayed your trust. The colleague who undermined you in front of others. These wounds feel justified, and they are. You were wronged. You have every right to be angry. But here's what you need to understand: that anger isn't punishing them. It's imprisoning you. Every time Rachel walked into a meeting, her resentment walked in with her. When opportunities for collaboration arose, she hesitated, seeing potential betrayal around every corner. Her creativity, once flowing freely, now filtered through layers of defensiveness and doubt. Think of emotional baggage as a backpack filled with rocks. Each grudge, each unresolved anger, adds another stone. You might have grown so used to carrying this weight that it feels normal. But imagine how much faster you could move, how much higher you could climb, without it. Rachel's turning point came during a leadership retreat I was facilitating. When asked about her biggest obstacle to growth, she started talking about her former partner. But halfway through, she stopped, suddenly hearing herself. 3 years of her career had been viewed through the lens of this betrayal. How many opportunities had she missed while focusing on this past injury? Here's the truth about forgiveness. It's not about absolving others of responsibility. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of past pain. It's recognizing that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Your challenge now is simple but crucial. Take out a piece of paper. At the top, write down one grudge or regret that's been weighing you down. It could be toward someone else, or even toward yourself. Below it, write a letter expressing everything you've wanted to say. Don't filter. Don't edit. Let every emotion flow onto that page. This letter isn't meant to be sent. It's meant to be a release valve for the pressure you've been carrying. Once you've written everything down, read it once more, then make a conscious choice to let it go. Some find it helpful to physically destroy the letter, burn it, tear it up, or let it float down a river. The symbolic act can be surprisingly powerful. Remember, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. It's choosing your future over your past. It's reclaiming the energy you've been spending on anger and redirecting it toward your growth. Chapter 3. Reframing Challenges as Opportunities. Let me tell you about Marcus, a software developer who spent 12 years building his career at a prominent tech company. He wasn't just good at his job, he was the go-to person for critical projects, the one who could untangle the most complex coding challenges. His identity was deeply intertwined with his role and the respect it commanded. He'd built a reputation as the problem solver, the one who stayed late to debug critical systems and mentor junior developers. Then came the layoffs. Despite his track record, despite his dedication, Marcus found himself among those let go. You know that gut punch feeling when something you thought was secure suddenly dissolves? That's where he was. Sitting in his home office, staring at his severance package, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. The carefully constructed future he'd planned seemed to crumble in an instant. But here's what you need to understand about moments of apparent defeat. They're often disguised opportunities for transformation. What feels like an ending can be the beginning you never dared to pursue. These moments of disruption shake us free from our comfortable patterns and force us to see possibilities we've been blind to. For Marcus, the turning point came while organizing his project files. As he scrolled through years of work, he noticed a pattern. The projects that truly energized him weren't the mainstream development tasks. They were the security-focused challenges he'd solved on the side. He'd always been passionate about cybersecurity, but had never pursued it fully because he was comfortable in his role. The security audits he'd volunteered for, the penetration testing he'd studied in his spare time, these were the projects that made him lose track of time. This failure wasn't a dead end. It was a doorway he'd been afraid to walk through. The comfort of his previous role had kept him from embracing his true calling. Think about the obstacles you're facing right now. That rejection letter, that failed project, that relationship that didn't work out. You're viewing these through a particular lens. But what if you adjusted your focus? What if these setbacks are actually redirecting you toward your authentic path? Think of Sarah Blakely's journey with Spanx. When she first pitched her revolutionary shapewear idea, manufacturer after manufacturer showed her the door. Most people would have seen these rejections as clear signs to give up. Instead, Blakely saw each no as valuable feedback. She studied why they said no. She refined her pitch. She adjusted her approach. She took detailed notes after every rejection, analyzing the specific concerns and objections raised. What appeared to be a wall of rejection became a staircase of improvement. Each no taught her something new about her product, her presentation, and her market. Those very rejections that could have ended her journey became the foundation of her billion-dollar success. She didn't just persist, she evolved, adapted, and grew stronger with each setback. This isn't about naive positivity. It's about strategic optimism, the kind that acknowledges reality but refuses to be limited by it. It's about developing what I call possibility vision, the ability to spot opportunities in setbacks, lessons in losses, and doors in dead ends. This mindset doesn't deny the pain of failure. It transforms that pain into fuel for growth. Your challenge today is this. Take your biggest recent setback and list 3 potential opportunities it might have created. They don't have to be obvious or immediate. Maybe losing that job opens up time to finally start your own business. Perhaps that rejected proposal contains feedback that could make your next pitch unstoppable. Look deeper than the surface disappointment to find the hidden advantages. Remember, the obstacle isn't in your way, it is the way. And every no you receive isn't a verdict on your worth. It's an invitation to evolve, adapt, and emerge stronger. These moments of apparent failure are testing grounds for your resilience and creativity, challenging you to see beyond conventional limitations and discover your true potential. Chapter 4. Taming the Inner Critic. Picture Rachel standing in front of her office building, heart racing as she prepares for the biggest presentation of her career. After 5 years of dedicated work, pushing through countless late nights and overcoming every obstacle in her path, she's on the cusp of becoming the youngest division director in her company's history. The promotion is practically hers, except for the voice in her head that won't stop whispering, "You're not ready. They'll see right through you. You got lucky until now, but this is where you'll fail." You know this voice intimately. It's the same one that makes you question your abilities at crucial moments, that tells you to play it safe when opportunity knocks, that insists you're not good enough despite all evidence to the contrary. But here's what you need to understand, really understand. This voice isn't the truth. It's just a story you've been telling yourself, a narrative that's been holding you back from your true potential. Think about where these limiting beliefs come from. Often they're echoes of past criticisms, childhood experiences, or societal pressures we've internalized over years of exposure. Maybe it was a teacher who once doubted you, or a parent who meant well but instilled caution instead of confidence. But just because these thoughts feel real doesn't mean they are real. Your mind is simply running old programming that no longer serves you, outdated software that needs a critical update. The key to breaking free isn't fighting these thoughts. It's learning to reframe them with precision and purpose. When Rachel caught herself thinking, "I'm not qualified enough," she paused and asked, "What evidence actually supports this?" Looking at her track record objectively, she saw a pattern of consistent achievement, problem-solving, and growth that spoke volumes. The unqualified story crumbled under scrutiny, revealing itself as the paper tiger it truly was. This is the power of conscious reframing, a tool that can transform your entire perspective. Instead of "I'm not ready," try "I'm learning and growing every day." Replace "They'll see through me" with "My unique perspective brings value to the team." Transform "I got lucky" into "I created opportunities through hard work and preparation." Each reframe builds a stronger foundation for success. Your internal dialogue shapes your reality more than any external circumstance ever could. When you shift from self-criticism to self-coaching, you unlock levels of performance and confidence you didn't know you had. Rachel didn't just get the promotion. She excelled in her new role because she finally gave herself permission to succeed, to lead, to be the person she was capable of becoming all along. Your challenge now is to become aware of your own limiting narratives and actively work to reshape them. Take out a piece of paper and write down 3 negative thoughts that repeatedly surface in your mind, the ones that hold you back from taking action. Next to each one, write a reframed version that empowers rather than diminishes you. For example, "I'm too old to start something new" becomes, "My experience gives me unique advantages in new ventures, and my wisdom will help me avoid common pitfalls." Make this practice a daily habit, as essential as brushing your teeth or checking your emails. Every time you catch that critical inner voice, pause, question it, and consciously choose a more empowering perspective. Remember, you wouldn't talk to a friend the way your inner critic talks to you. You'd offer encouragement, support, and belief in their potential. It's time to become your own best ally rather than. Chapter 5. The Power of Self-Awareness. Picture Michael Brown, a successful marketing executive who seemed to have it all figured out on paper. Yet beneath the polished exterior, He felt disconnected, going through motions without truly understanding why certain situations left him drained or reactive. His breaking point came during a particularly heated client meeting where he snapped at a colleague over what should have been a minor disagreement. Recognizing something needed to change, Michael committed to a 30-day mindfulness challenge that included daily journaling. At first, the process felt awkward, staring at blank pages, unsure what to write. But as days passed, patterns began emerging through his written reflections. He noticed how criticism, even constructive, would trigger an immediate defensive response. These reactions, he realized, stemmed from childhood experiences where he felt his best was never good enough. This revelation changed everything. By understanding the root of his triggers, Michael could pause before reacting. When a client questioned his strategy, instead of feeling attacked, he recognized his old pattern and chose to respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness. This shift didn't just improve his professional relationships, it transformed his personal life too. Self-awareness is your most powerful tool for building resilience. Without understanding what drives your reactions, you're operating on autopilot, letting old programming dictate your responses. Think about it. How many times have you overreacted to a situation, only to wonder later why it affected you so strongly? The truth is, your emotional triggers are like invisible tripwires. Until you map them out, you'll keep stumbling over the same obstacles. But once you identify these patterns, you gain the power to choose different responses. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them so thoroughly that they become indicators rather than dictators of your behavior. Through consistent journaling and self-reflection, you create a feedback loop that strengthens your emotional intelligence. Each insight becomes a building block for better decision-making. When you understand why certain situations push your buttons, you can prepare for them instead of being blindsided. Your challenge now is to start this journey of self-discovery. Take 5 minutes to write about a recent situation where your emotional reaction surprised you or felt stronger than warranted. Don't just describe what happened. Dig deeper. Ask yourself, what exactly triggered this response? What past experiences might this situation remind you of? What beliefs about yourself or others surfaced in that moment? This exercise isn't about judgment. It's about understanding. Every insight you gain is another tool in your resilience toolkit, another step toward mastering your responses rather than being mastered by them. Chapter 6. The Strength in Vulnerability. William Carter stood before his team at Vertex Solutions, his heart pounding. After 15 years of maintaining a stoic, unwavering facade as their leader, he was about to do something different. The quarterly numbers weren't good, and instead of putting on a brave face, he decided to be honest. "I've made mistakes," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Our current situation isn't just market conditions or external factors. Some of my decisions over the past months weren't the right ones, and I'm learning from them." The silence in the room was deafening. You might think this would be the moment where respect crumbles, where authority diminishes. But something extraordinary happened instead. One by one, team members started sharing their own challenges. Ideas flowed freely. Solutions emerged not from a place of fear or pretense, but from genuine collaboration. In the weeks that followed, productivity soared. The team's connection deepened, and their collective problem-solving abilities strengthened. This is the paradox of vulnerability. What you might perceive as weakness becomes your greatest strength. You've been taught to maintain an image of perfection, to never let them see you sweat. But this exhausting charade actually undermines your leadership and stunts your growth. Think about the leaders who've influenced you most deeply. Were they the ones who seemed infallible, or those who showed their humanity? When you drop the mask, you create space for authentic connections. Your struggles, openly acknowledged, become bridges rather than barriers. This isn't about oversharing or using vulnerability as a crutch. It's about measured authenticity, showing enough of your real self to create genuine connections while maintaining appropriate boundaries. When you stop expending energy maintaining a perfect image, you free up resources for actual growth and innovation. The cost of keeping up appearances is higher than you realize. Every time you pretend to have all the answers, you close yourself off from potential solutions. Each moment spent hiding your challenges is a missed opportunity for meaningful connection. Your challenge today is to share one fear or struggle with someone you trust. This isn't about unloading or seeking sympathy. It's about practicing the courage to be seen as you truly are. Choose something meaningful but manageable, and observe how this small act of vulnerability affects your relationship and your own sense of freedom. Remember, strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being real, being resilient, and being willing to grow through your imperfections. When you embrace this truth, you don't just become a better leader, you become a more authentic version of yourself. Chapter 7. Anchored by Your Why. David Chen arrived at his small biotech startup at 5 a.m., just as he had every day for the past 3 years. The lab equipment hummed in the background as he reviewed the latest test results, another failed attempt at developing a breakthrough cancer treatment. His personal savings were nearly depleted, his marriage had crumbled under the strain, and most of his initial team had left for more stable positions. Yet every morning he returned. Not because success was guaranteed, it wasn't. Not because the work was easy, it was brutally challenging. He returned because somewhere in a hospital, a child was fighting for their life against an aggressive form of cancer that current treatments couldn't touch. That child's face, and the faces of countless others, drove him forward when logic and reason suggested giving up. You see, purpose isn't just about having a goal. It's about connecting to something bigger than yourself, something that pulls you forward when every fiber of your being wants to retreat. When you're anchored to a powerful why, setbacks become temporary obstacles rather than permanent defeats. Take Elon Musk's journey with SpaceX and Tesla. The early years were marked by rocket explosions, near bankruptcy, and relentless criticism. Traditional auto executives mocked his electric vehicle ambitions. Space industry veterans predicted his inevitable failure. But Musk's purpose, advancing humanity through sustainable energy and space exploration, wasn't just a corporate mission statement. It was a compass that guided every decision, every pivot, and every push through seemingly insurmountable obstacles. This unwavering focus on purpose transformed short-term setbacks into stepping stones. Each rocket failure provided crucial data. Every production challenge at Tesla led to manufacturing innovations. The mission was strong enough to attract and retain top talent, convince investors to stay the course, and ultimately revolutionize 2 industries. Your purpose doesn't need to involve transforming industries or saving humanity, but it needs to be authentic and meaningful enough to sustain you through dark times. When you're clear about your why, decision-making becomes simpler. Opportunities align naturally with your mission. Setbacks, while still painful, don't shake your foundation. This isn't about blind optimism. It's about having a reason to persist when optimism fails you. Your purpose becomes the bedrock that supports you when motivation wanes and doubts creep in. Today's challenge is to write down your core purpose, not what you think it should be, but what truly moves you. Ask yourself, if all external rewards were removed, what work would I still find meaningful? Then identify 3 ways this purpose can guide your decisions this week. When you align your daily actions with your deeper mission, you tap into a wellspring of resilience that mere motivation can't match. Remember David Chen? After 4 years and countless setbacks, his team's persistence led to a breakthrough treatment protocol that's now in clinical trials. The faces that drove him forward weren't imaginary anymore. They belong to real patients receiving real hope. Chapter 8. The Science of Emotional Regulation. Picture Jason, a promising tennis player whose serve could slice through the air at 130 mph. Yet in crucial matches, his hands would shake, his chest would tighten, and that lethal serve would crash into the net. The physical symptoms of anxiety weren't just affecting his game, they were threatening to derail his entire career. You've likely experienced something similar. Maybe not on a tennis court, but in a boardroom, before a presentation, or during a crucial conversation. Your heart races, your breathing becomes shallow, and your mind spins out of control. This isn't weakness. It's your body's natural stress response system at work. Here's what's actually happening. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, perceives pressure as danger. This triggers a cascade of hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body for fight or flight. In our ancestral past, this response helped us survive predators. Today, it can sabotage our performance when we need it most. But here's the game-changing truth. You can hack this system. Through controlled breathing, you directly influence your vagus nerve, which acts like a brake pedal for your stress response. When you extend your exhale longer than your inhale, you literally shift your nervous system from sympathetic, fight or flight, to parasympathetic, rest and digest mode. Jason learned to implement a simple box breathing technique. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. By practicing this pattern daily, he built new neural pathways that helped him remain composed under pressure. Within months, his performance anxiety transformed into focused intensity. The science is clear. Regular breathing exercises don't just calm you in the moment. They actually reshape your brain's stress response over time. Through neuroplasticity, you're training your nervous system to maintain composure under pressure. Your challenge: start with this basic exercise. Sit comfortably and breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, then out through your mouth for 6 seconds. Practice this for 5 minutes daily, preferably at the same time each day. Note how your body feels before and after. This isn't just about relaxation, it's about building a stronger, more resilient nervous system. The next time pressure mounts, you'll have more than just willpower at your disposal. You'll have a scientifically proven tool to regulate your emotional state and perform at your peak. Chapter 9. The Foundation of Grit. Let me tell you about Marcus, a 42-year-old accountant who decided to pursue marathon running after years of watching from the sidelines. For 3 straight years, he finished in the bottom quarter of every race he entered. Most people would have quit. Most people would have made excuses about age, genetics, or natural talent. But Marcus understood something fundamental about human potential that most miss. You see, what separates extraordinary achievers from everyone else isn't talent. It's grit. And grit isn't some mystical quality that you're either born with or without. It's a skill you build, decision by decision, day after day. Marcus didn't just train his body, he trained his capacity to endure. He started with a simple commitment: wake up at 4:30 a.m. every single day, regardless of weather or how he felt. When his legs burned during hill training, he wouldn't stop at 10 repeats if his program called for 12. When other runners cut their long runs short in the rain, he completed every planned mile. This isn't about being superhuman. It's about understanding that greatness is built in those moments when you're tired, uncomfortable, and tempted to quit, but you push through anyway. Each time you choose discomfort over comfort, you're not just training your body, you're strengthening your grit muscle. After 3 years of consistent, methodical training, Marcus didn't just finish in the top 3. He won his age group in the Boston Marathon qualifier. But here's what you need to understand. The victory wasn't in crossing that finish line. The victory was in every early morning when his alarm went off and he chose to get up. It was in every rainy training run he completed. It was in every recovery session he didn't skip. You're capable of this same transformation. Whether your goal is athletic, professional, or personal, the principle remains the same. Grit is built through deliberate, consistent action in the face of resistance. Your challenge: choose one ambitious goal that excites and scares you equally. Now identify 3 non-negotiable daily actions that will move you toward that goal. These actions should be specific and measurable. For example, instead of exercise more, commit to complete 50 push-ups before breakfast. Instead of work harder, commit to spend 90 minutes on my most important task before checking email. Instead of eat better, commit to prepare all meals for tomorrow before going to bed. Write these actions down and treat them as appointments with yourself that cannot be broken. Remember, the size of your actions matters less than your consistency in performing them. Small actions repeated daily build the grit muscle that will carry you to your biggest goals. Chapter 10. Shattering Limiting Beliefs. Let me tell you about Joseph Gray, a middle-aged IT specialist who spent 20 years believing he wasn't creative enough to start his own business. Every time an innovative idea crossed his mind, a familiar voice would whisper, "You're just a code monkey. Leave the entrepreneurship to natural-born leaders." You've heard this voice too, haven't you? Those limiting beliefs that feel more like absolute truths than mere thoughts. They're scripts running in the background of your mind, often installed by well-meaning parents, teachers, or past experiences. Joseph's script was written early. His father, a factory worker, had always said, "People like us work for others. We don't build empires." This message burrowed deep into Joseph's psyche, becoming a lens through which he viewed every opportunity. But here's what changed everything. One day, while fixing yet another executive's computer, Joseph noticed a pattern in how non-tech savvy business owners struggled with basic cybersecurity. Instead of dismissing his observation, he asked himself, "What if I'm wrong about not being creative?" This simple question began dismantling his limiting belief. He started keeping a belief journal, documenting every time his internal script clashed with reality. He noted instances where his uncreative solutions actually solved complex problems. He tracked moments when his worker bee mentality helped him spot opportunities others missed. Within 6 months, Joseph launched a cybersecurity consulting firm specifically for small business owners. His supposedly uncreative approach, making complex security concepts accessible to non-tech entrepreneurs, became his greatest asset. Today, his company protects over 200 small businesses across 3 states. Consider Oprah's journey. Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, she faced a mountain of societal scripts telling her what wasn't possible for someone of her background, gender, and race. But instead of accepting these limitations, she questioned every truth that attempted to define her. Each rejection in her early media career became an opportunity to rewrite her internal narrative. The lesson is clear. Your limiting beliefs are just stories you've been told or told yourself. They're not prophecies. They're not your destiny. They're simply outdated scripts waiting to be rewritten. Your challenge: take out a piece of paper. Write down 3 limiting beliefs that have held you back. Next to each, write evidence that contradicts this belief. For example, "I'm not creative. I solved that complex problem at work last week in a way no one else considered. I can't lead. I successfully organized my daughter's school fundraiser. I'm too old to start. Colonel Sanders started KFC at 65. Choose one belief to actively challenge this week. Each time it surfaces, consciously replace it with your contradicting evidence. Watch how your reality begins to shift when you stop accepting these internal constraints as truth. Remember, the most dangerous limitations are the ones you accept without question. Start questioning. Part 2. Strengthening your mental arsenal. Chapter 11. Building habits of resilience. You see her every day, the nurse who seems to have it all together, moving efficiently between patients, handling emergencies with grace. What you don't see is Styler collapsing into her car after a 12-hour shift, fighting back tears as she remembers the 3 critical patients she lost that week. You don't see her rushing home to care for her elderly mother or struggling to find time for her own health needs. But Styler discovered something powerful that transformed her life, and it wasn't some dramatic overhaul or expensive program. It started with 2 minutes, just 120 seconds of focused breathing before entering each patient's room. Think about that for a moment. 2 minutes. That's less time than you spend scrolling through social media while waiting for your coffee to brew. Yet this micro-habit became Styler's anchor during chaos. She added another small practice, writing down 3 things she was grateful for before bed, even on the hardest days. Some nights, those entries were as simple as, "I remembered to eat lunch," or "The coffee machine worked today." But these tiny acknowledgments began rewiring her brain's stress response. This is how resilience actually works. It's not about making massive changes or waiting for some enlightening moment of transformation. It's built in the small moments, the tiny choices you make repeatedly until they become automatic. The science behind this is clear. When you establish micro-habits, you're actually creating new neural pathways in your brain. Each time you pause for those 2 minutes of breathing or jot down your gratitude notes, you're strengthening these pathways. It's like laying down bricks. One at a time, you build a foundation that can weather any storm. Within 3 months, Styler noticed something remarkable. The same situations that used to send her into emotional tailspins, difficult patients, family demands, unexpected crises, no longer held the same power over her. Her stress threshold had risen, not because the challenges decreased, but because she had systematically built her capacity to handle them. Your challenge: choose one small habit that you can practice consistently for the next 7 days. Make it ridiculously easy, something that takes 5 minutes or less. Maybe it's taking 3 deep breaths before checking your phone in the morning. Perhaps it's writing down one positive observation about your day before bed. The specific habit matters less than your commitment to doing it every single day, without fail. Remember, you're not aiming for perfection or transformation overnight. You're laying down one brick at a time, building a foundation of resilience that will serve you through whatever challenges lie ahead. The power lies not in the size of the action, but in its consistency. Chapter 12. Mastering Focus in a Distracted World. Meet James, a promising startup founder whose typical day looked like a digital war zone. 147 unread emails, 23 Slack channels lighting up like Christmas trees, and social media notifications that seemed to multiply faster than rabbits. His revolutionary app idea was gathering dust while he drowned in the shallow waters of constant connectivity. Like many modern entrepreneurs, he was caught in the exhausting cycle of reactive work, always responding but never truly creating. You might recognize yourself in James's story. The endless scroll, the compulsive email checking, the illusion of productivity in responding to every ping and notification. But here's what you need to understand. Your attention is your most valuable currency in today's economy, and you're probably giving it away for free. Every notification you respond to is a microtransaction where you're trading your focus for someone else's agenda. James's turning point came when he tracked his screen time and discovered he was spending over 6 hours daily just reacting to notifications. That's when he implemented what I call the Digital Fortress Protocol. First, he turned off all notifications except calls from key team members. Then he structured his day into focused blocks. 2 hours of deep work in the morning before opening any communication apps, followed by designated shallow work periods for emails and meetings. He even set up an autoresponder explaining his new communication rhythm to manage expectations. The results? Within 3 weeks, he had completed more core development work on his app than in the previous 3 months combined. His team's productivity soared because they weren't expecting instant responses to every message. Most importantly, his mental bandwidth expanded dramatically. Ideas flowed more freely, solutions came more easily, and his strategic thinking improved. The constant background anxiety of missing something urgent disappeared, replaced by a calm, focused energy. This brings us to Bill Gates's Think Weeks, perhaps the most powerful example of strategic isolation in modern business history. Twice yearly, Gates would retreat to a remote cabin with nothing but books and papers. No emails, no phones, no meetings, just pure, uninterrupted thought. During these periods of intense focus, he conceived major strategic initiatives that would later transform Microsoft and the tech industry. These sessions weren't luxury retreats. They were crucial strategic tools that gave Microsoft its competitive edge. The lesson here isn't that you need to disappear into the woods, though that wouldn't hurt. It's that creating periods of intense focus, even short ones, can exponentially accelerate your progress and clarity. When you eliminate the constant drip of disruptions, your mind can finally engage with deeper, more complex problems. This is where breakthrough insights happen, where innovation takes root, and where your best work emerges. Your challenge: choose one important task or project. For the next week, dedicate 90 minutes each morning to working on it before opening any communication apps or checking messages. Turn off all notifications during this time. Keep a log of what you accomplished during these focused sessions compared to your normal working style. Notice not just the quantity of work, but the quality of your thinking and the depth of your solutions. Remember, focus isn't just about getting more done. It's about accessing the deeper levels of thinking and creativity that only emerge when you give your mind the space it needs to truly engage with complex problems. Your best ideas, most innovative solutions, and greatest breakthroughs are waiting on the other side of distraction. The question is, are you willing to create the space they need to emerge? Chapter 13. The Resilient Mindset for Failure. Picture Matthew, a rising tennis star who had just lost his 4th consecutive tournament match. The defeat wasn't just a loss, it was a public humiliation that left him questioning everything about his game, from his training regimen to his mental fortitude. You might be nodding right now, because you felt that same crushing weight of repeated failure, that gut-wrenching moment when it seems like all your efforts amount to nothing. But here's what separates champions from everyone else. They don't just experience failure, they study it with the precision of a scientist. Matthew didn't just sulk after those losses or make empty promises to do better next time. He reviewed every match recording meticulously, broke down each point with his coach, and identified patterns in his performance that revealed crucial weaknesses. He discovered that his serve accuracy dropped significantly during crucial points, and his footwork became sloppy when pressure mounted, especially during tiebreakers. Instead of seeing these losses as proof of inadequacy, Matthew treated them as a detailed research project into his own potential. He restructured his training to focus heavily on serve consistency under pressure, practicing hundreds of serves while intentionally creating high-stakes scenarios. He incorporated meditation and visualization techniques to manage match-point anxiety, spending 30 minutes each morning mentally rehearsing crucial moments. Each failure became a data point guiding his path to improvement, a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. You're probably wondering why some people crumble under failure while others emerge stronger, more determined, and more focused than ever. The difference lies in how you frame the experience in your mind. When you view failure as a personal indictment, you'll naturally avoid risks and play it safe, shrinking your world to avoid pain. But when you approach failure as feedback, as valuable information about what needs adjustment, you transform it into fuel for growth, turning your biggest setbacks into your greatest teachers. Think about it. Every significant breakthrough in human history came after countless failures that would have broken lesser spirits. The Wright brothers crashed numerous times before achieving flight, learning vital lessons from each failed attempt. Edison found thousands of ways not to make a light bulb before finding one that worked, famously declaring that he hadn't failed, but had successfully identified methods that wouldn't succeed. These weren't failures. They were essential steps toward success, each one eliminating another wrong answer on the path to the right one. Matthew's story culminated 6 months later, when he faced his longtime rival in the finals of a major tournament. Using the insights gained from his previous losses, he stayed focused during crucial points and maintained his technique under pressure, even when down match point in the second set. When he finally won match point, it wasn't just a victory, it was the product of lessons learned through failure, a testament to the power of transforming defeat into data. Your challenge. Take a moment now to think about a recent failure that still stings, that makes your stomach clench when you recall it. On a piece of paper, write down 3 specific lessons you can extract from that experience, being brutally honest with yourself about what went wrong and why. Then, identify one concrete action you can take this week to apply those lessons in a meaningful way. Remember, you're not examining the failure to relive the pain. You're mining it for gold, searching for the wisdom hidden within the wreckage. The key isn't to avoid failure, it's to fail forward with purpose and awareness. Each setback contains the seeds of your next breakthrough, but only if you're willing to study the lesson rather than hide from the pain. Your failures aren't your enemies. They're your most honest teachers, showing you exactly where you need to grow. Chapter 14. Cultivating Mental Flexibility. Let me tell you about Ted, a marketing manager who thought he had it all figured out. After a decade of running successful social media campaigns, he had his strategy down to a science, a well-oiled machine that consistently delivered results. Then came the earthquake, a major platform overhaul that rendered his entire playbook obsolete overnight, shattering the foundation he'd built his expertise upon. You know that sinking feeling when everything you've mastered suddenly becomes irrelevant? When years of experience seem to evaporate in an instant? Ted's first reaction was what most people do. He dug in his heels. He complained about the changes, insisted his old methods were better, and wasted precious weeks hoping things would revert back, clinging desperately to the comfort of his familiar routines. But here's where Ted's story takes an interesting turn. During a sleepless night, scrolling through industry forums, he noticed something. While others were lamenting the changes, a few innovative marketers were already experimenting with the new features, pushing boundaries and discovering hidden opportunities. That's when it hit him. The platform change wasn't the real threat. His rigid thinking was the anchor dragging him down. The next morning, Ted made a decision that would transform his career. Instead of fighting the change, he embraced it with the enthusiasm of a beginner. He dedicated 2 hours each morning to learning the new algorithm, treating it like a puzzle to be solved. He joined online communities where marketers shared their discoveries, contributing his own insights and learning from others' experiments. He started running small test campaigns to understand the new mechanics, measuring and adjusting with each iteration. Within 3 months, Ted had not only adapted to the new system, he'd become an expert in it, surpassing even his previous level of mastery. While his competitors were still struggling to adjust, stuck in their outdated mindsets, he was pioneering innovative approaches that wouldn't have been possible under the old system. His willingness to pivot quickly turned what could have been a career crisis into a competitive advantage, opening doors he never knew existed. This isn't just about marketing algorithms. Your world is constantly shifting beneath your feet, evolving at an ever-accelerating pace. New technologies emerge, industries transform, and skills that were valuable yesterday become outdated tomorrow. The question isn't whether change will come. It's whether you'll be rigid or flexible when it arrives, whether you'll break or bend and spring back stronger. Mental flexibility isn't just about surviving change. It's about thriving through it, using it as fuel for growth. It's about seeing shifts in your environment not as threats, but as opportunities to evolve and grow stronger, to reinvent yourself and discover new capabilities. Every change brings new possibilities, but only for those willing to adapt their thinking and approach, only for those brave enough to let go of what they know and embrace what could be. Your challenge: take out a piece of paper right now. Write down 3 areas in your life where you feel stuck, areas where your current approach isn't giving you the results you want, where you've been spinning your wheels without making progress. For each one, force yourself to brainstorm one completely different approach, something that might even seem counterintuitive at first. Don't judge or evaluate these alternatives yet. Just let yourself explore new possibilities, no matter how unconventional they might seem. Remember, the goal isn't to immediately abandon your current methods, but to expand your mental toolkit and practice the art of flexible thinking. This exercise isn't just about finding solutions. It's about training your mind to see options where others see obstacles. Chapter 15. Facing Fear with Courage. Let me tell you about Terry, a 16-year-old who would rather take an F than stand in front of class. His hands would shake uncontrollably at the mere thought of public speaking, and his throat would tighten until even breathing felt like a challenge. When his debate teacher announced the upcoming regional tournament, Terry felt that familiar knot in his stomach twist even tighter than usual. But something was different this time. Instead of immediately declining, Terry remembered how his older sister had overcome her fear of heights, not by avoiding tall buildings, but by gradually exposing herself to increasing elevations, starting with the second floor and working her way up to skyscrapers. That night, he made a decision that would reshape his relationship with fear forever. You see, fear isn't your enemy. It's a sophisticated alarm system developed over millions of years to keep you safe, fine-tuned through countless generations of survival. The racing heart, sweaty palms, and heightened awareness, these aren't signs of weakness. They're your body preparing you for peak performance, flooding your system with everything you need to face the challenge ahead. The problem isn't the fear itself, but how you interpret it and what story you tell yourself about its meaning. Terry started small. He joined the debate club's practice sessions, first as an observer, studying how others handled their nerves. Then he volunteered to give 1-minute speeches in front of 3 people, gradually increasing the audience size and duration. Each time, his anxiety spiked, but he noticed something crucial. The fear never killed him. In fact, the more he leaned into it, the more manageable it became, like a wave that loses power as you learn to ride it. He used visualization techniques, imagining himself succeeding on stage, hearing the applause, feeling the satisfaction of delivering his message clearly. Instead of fighting his nervous energy, he reframed it as excitement, turning that flutter in his stomach into rocket fuel. By the time the tournament arrived, was he completely fearless? No. But he had learned to channel that energy into fuel for his performance, transforming what once paralyzed him into power. Terry placed 3rd in that tournament. But the real victory wasn't the bronze medal. It was his transformed relationship with fear. He discovered that courage isn't about eliminating fear. It's about building a new relationship with it, understanding its purpose, and using it to propel you forward instead of hold you back. Your challenge: for the next 7 days, deliberately put yourself in slightly uncomfortable situations. If you're afraid of social interactions, say hello to one stranger each day and try to maintain eye contact for a full second longer than usual. If you fear heights, go up one floor higher in a building than you normally would, gradually working your way toward higher elevations. If public speaking terrifies you, record yourself talking for 30 seconds and share it with one trusted friend. Then extend the duration by 15 seconds each day. The key is consistency and gradual progression. Don't try to conquer your biggest fear in one giant leap. That's like trying to deadlift 300 pounds without training. Instead, take small, manageable steps that stretch your comfort zone just enough to build confidence without overwhelming yourself. Document your progress, celebrate small wins, and remember that setbacks are just feedback. Remember, every time you act in the face of fear, you're rewiring your brain's response to it. You're teaching yourself that discomfort is not danger and that growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. Each small victory builds upon the last, creating a foundation of resilience that will serve you in every area of your life. This isn't just about conquering fear. It's about becoming someone who uses fear as a compass pointing toward growth. Chapter 16. The Discipline Blueprint. Let me share a story about Mark Aden, a former Marine Corps sergeant who found himself adrift after leaving the military. The structured environment that had defined his life for over a decade vanished overnight. Within 6 months of his return, he lost his marriage, struggled with depression, sleeping until noon, and barely maintaining his civilian job. His world, once governed by clear missions and purpose, had dissolved into a fog of uncertainty and inaction. You might think discipline is just about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But for Mark, discipline became his lifeline back to purpose. One morning, staring at his disheveled reflection, he realized something profound. The only difference between his successful military life and his current situation was the external structure. He needed to rebuild that structure from within to become his own commanding officer in civilian life. Mark started small but significant. He set his alarm for 5 a.m., non-negotiable. Each night he laid out his workout clothes and prepared his coffee maker. These weren't just habits. They were commitments to himself, daily promises that rebuilt his self-trust one morning at a time. Within weeks, his morning routine expanded to include a workout, meditation, and planning his day. Each successful morning became proof that he could still be the person he once was. The key to Mark's transformation wasn't motivation, it was systems. He created what he called his daily operations order, a checklist of non-negotiable tasks that had to be completed regardless of how he felt. This wasn't about feeling inspired. It was about showing up and executing, just like he'd done countless times in the Corps. Every completed task reinforced his identity as someone who follows through. You see, discipline isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Mark missed workouts occasionally and sometimes hit snooze. But instead of letting these moments derail him, he treated them like tactical setbacks. Acknowledge, adjust, advance. He learned that civilian discipline requires the same adaptability that served him in the military. He implemented the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. He used time blocking for major tasks and maintained an accountability log. These weren't just productivity hacks. They were the scaffolding of his new life, the framework that allowed him to rebuild himself from the ground up. Each small victory strengthened his resolve for the next challenge. Within 6 months, Mark had secured a promotion at work. His apartment was organized, his finances were in order, and he'd started mentoring other veterans. The transformation wasn't just personal. It rippled through his entire community. His renewed sense of purpose became a beacon for others struggling to find their way. This mirrors what we've seen with Jocko Willink's extreme ownership principles in the corporate world. When you take absolute responsibility for your actions and outcomes, it creates a foundation for others to do the same. Mark's colleagues started adopting his systems. His mentees implemented their own morning routines. His discipline became contagious, creating a ripple effect of positive change throughout his network. Your challenge: create your own daily operations order. Start with 3 non-negotiable tasks that you'll complete every day for the next week. These should be specific and measurable. For example, wake up at 6 a.m., exercise for 20 minutes, plan tomorrow's schedule before bed. Track these in a simple log or app. Make these commitments sacred, treating them with the same importance as you would any critical responsibility. The power lies in the commitment, not the complexity. Choose tasks that align with your goals, but are simple enough to execute consistently. Remember, you're not just building habits, you're developing a personal standard of excellence that will influence everything you do. This is your chance to become the commanding officer of your own life, to build the structure that will support your success for years to come. Chapter 17: The Unstoppable Energy Loop. Your body isn't just a vehicle for your ambitions, it's the foundation of everything you'll achieve. Let me tell you about Linda, a marketing executive and single mother of 2 who thought pushing through exhaustion was the mark of dedication. She wore her perpetual tiredness like a badge of honor, fueling herself with endless cups of coffee and working through lunch breaks. You might recognize this pattern: the constant juggle between deadlines and family obligations, the late-night email checks that steal precious sleep, the quick processed meals eaten while multitasking. Linda's breaking point came during a crucial client presentation when her mind went completely blank, the culmination of months of neglecting her basic physical needs. Here's what you need to understand. Resilience isn't just mental fortitude. It's a full-body experience. When Linda finally reached out for help, her blood work revealed severe vitamin deficiencies, and her cortisol levels were through the roof. Her body had been screaming for attention, but she'd trained herself to ignore the signals. The solution wasn't another time management app or productivity hack. It started with fundamental changes to how she managed her energy. Linda began with sleep hygiene: no screens an hour before bed, a consistent bedtime routine, and a cool, dark room. Within days, her morning brain fog started lifting. Next came nutrition. Instead of skipping breakfast and crash dieting, she adopted what I call the power plate principle. Every meal included protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. She prepped meals on Sundays, ensuring healthy options were always within reach during hectic workdays. The game changer was incorporating movement throughout her day. Not marathon training sessions. We're talking 10-minute walk breaks between meetings, desk stretches, and quick bodyweight exercises while waiting for her kids at soccer practice. These micro-movements kept her energy steady and her mind sharp. 3 months into these changes, Linda's transformation was undeniable. Her productivity soared not because she was working more hours, but because she was working with restored energy. Her team noticed she was more present in meetings, more creative in problem-solving, and more resilient when facing challenges. Your challenge: for the next 3 days, rate your energy levels on a scale of 1 to 10 at 4 specific times: morning, upon waking; noon, 3 p.m., and evening, before bed. Note what you ate, how you slept, and your activity level. Look for patterns. Maybe that post-lunch crash isn't inevitable, but tied to certain foods. Perhaps your most productive hours align with your morning workout. Pick one energy-draining habit to eliminate or improve. It could be replacing your afternoon sugar fix with a protein-rich snack, setting a consistent bedtime, or adding a 5-minute stretching routine to your workday. The key is choosing something specific and measurable. Remember, your physical vitality is the battery that powers your resilience. Treat it with the same importance you give to your professional goals. Chapter 18: The power of perspective. Let me share a powerful story about perspective that changed everything for one of my clients. Ashley, a software developer from Seattle, found herself stuck in a cycle of stress and frustration with her career. Every day felt like a battle against deadlines, office politics, and mounting pressure. That is, until a 3-week assignment in rural India shifted everything. A transformation that would reshape not just her outlook, but her entire approach to life's challenges. Working with a local tech education initiative, Ashley witnessed children walking miles through dusty roads and challenging terrain to attend a single computer class. She saw teenagers sharing one laptop among 5 students, their eyes lighting up at each new concept they mastered, their enthusiasm undiminished by the limited resources. In her temporary office, power outages were frequent, internet connections unstable, yet her local colleagues maintained unwavering optimism and resourcefulness, finding creative solutions to problems she would have once considered insurmountable. The contrast with her life back home was stark and eye-opening. What she once saw as unbearable obstacles now appeared as manageable challenges, mere stepping stones on her path to growth. Those tight deadlines? At least she had reliable electricity and high-speed internet to meet them. Difficult co-workers? She now had tools to navigate relationships with greater patience and understanding, drawing from the collaborative spirit she witnessed in India. You see, perspective isn't just about counting your blessings, though that's certainly part of it. It's about expanding your mental framework to see solutions you couldn't before, about breaking through the limitations of your current thinking. When you step outside your normal environment, whether physically or mentally, you break free from the tunnel vision that often keeps you stuck in patterns of negative thinking and limited possibilities. This isn't about minimizing your challenges or pretending they don't exist. Your struggles are real, valid, and deserve acknowledgement. But changing your vantage point can transform how you approach them, opening doors you never knew existed. Think about it. Every problem you're facing right now looks different when viewed through another lens. A career setback might appear as an opportunity for reinvention when seen through the eyes of someone who successfully pivoted industries. A relationship conflict might reveal new solutions when considered from your opponent's perspective, illuminating common ground you hadn't noticed before. Your challenge. Take the next 15 minutes to select one challenge you're currently facing. Make it something significant, something that's been weighing on your mind. Now, choose 3 different perspectives to examine it through. A mentor, or someone you deeply respect. Someone who's navigated similar waters successfully. Someone from a completely different cultural background or life experience than yours. Your future self, 5 years from now, looking back on this moment. Write down how each perspective shifts your understanding of the problem. What new solutions emerge from these different viewpoints? What aspects of the challenge seem less significant when viewed through these alternative lenses? What opportunities become visible that you couldn't see before from your current vantage point? Remember, this isn't about dismissing your current viewpoint or invalidating your experience. It's about enriching it with new dimensions of understanding and possibility. Just as Ashley's experience in India gave her new tools for resilience and problem-solving, your willingness to step outside your perspective can unlock fresh approaches to whatever you're facing. This is how real transformation begins, not by denying our challenges, but by viewing them through new eyes. Chapter 19. Building a Resilience Toolkit. Let me tell you about Harry, a survivor whose story will change how you think about emotional preparedness. When Hurricane Maria devastated his Puerto Rican community in 2017, Harry wasn't just physically prepared. He had something far more valuable, an emotional emergency kit that proved just as crucial as his stockpile of water and batteries. His story isn't just about survival, it's about thriving in the face of chaos. You see, in the months before the disaster, Harry had experienced anxiety attacks that led him to work with a therapist. Together, they created what he called his emotional survival pack, a carefully curated collection of tools he could turn to when feeling overwhelmed. This included a journal with specific prompts focusing on gratitude and problem solving, a laminated card with breathing exercises, and a list of 10 people he could reach out to for support, complete with multiple ways to contact them. Each component was deliberately chosen to address different aspects of emotional well-being. When Maria hit, Harry lost his home, his job, and was separated from family members for weeks. But unlike many others who struggled with the psychological toll, he had a systematic way to process his emotions and maintain mental clarity. Each morning, he'd complete a journal entry focusing on 3 things he could control. When anxiety struck, he'd pull out his breathing exercise card. When isolation threatened to overwhelm him, he had his support contact list. This systematic approach became his anchor in the storm, allowing him to think clearly and make rational decisions while others around him struggled with panic and despair. This isn't just about natural disasters. You're facing your own storms right now. Maybe it's a career crisis, relationship troubles, or health challenges. The question isn't if you'll face adversity. It's whether you'll have the tools ready when you do. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to test and strengthen your emotional preparedness. Think of your emotional toolkit like a first aid kit for your mind. Just as you wouldn't wait until you're bleeding to buy bandages, you shouldn't wait until you're in crisis to develop coping strategies. Your toolkit should be personalized. What works for others might not work for you. The key is to identify, test, and refine your coping mechanisms before you desperately need them. Here's what you need to understand. Resilience isn't about being unshakable. It's about having reliable methods to steady yourself when life tries to knock you down. Harry's story teaches us that preparation isn't paranoia. It's power. It's the difference between being at the mercy of circumstances and maintaining your emotional sovereignty no matter what life throws at you. Your challenge. Create your personal resilience toolkit by identifying 3 specific strategies or resources you can rely on during challenging times. Here's how. First, reflect on past difficulties. What helped you cope? Maybe it was a specific type of music, a physical activity, or a trusted friend's advice. Look for patterns in what has consistently brought you back to center. Second, write down these tools in detail. Not just meditation, but the specific guided meditation that calms you. Document exactly how and when each tool works best for you. Finally, make these tools easily accessible. Save encouraging messages where you can quickly find them. Bookmark helpful websites. Keep important phone numbers readily available. Create a system that works seamlessly under pressure. Remember, your emotional emergency kit isn't just a collection of items. It's your personalized strategy for maintaining strength when life gets tough. Like Harry, you'll find that being prepared doesn't just help you survive challenges. It helps you emerge stronger from them. This isn't about just getting by. It's about building the mental fortitude to face any challenge with confidence and clarity. Chapter 20. The Strength of Self-Compassion. Let me tell you about York, a high-powered executive who embodied the work harder, sleep later mentality that's glorified in today's culture. You've probably been there yourself, pushing through exhaustion, ignoring your body's warnings, treating every moment of rest as a sign of weakness. That voice in your head constantly whispers that you're not doing enough, that success demands sacrifice at any cost. York was pulling 80-hour weeks, skipping meals, and wearing their constant availability like a badge of honor. The results were impressive: record-breaking quarters, rapid promotions, industry recognition. But beneath the surface, something was cracking. The migraines started first, then the insomnia, followed by anxiety attacks that would hit during important meetings. Each symptom was a red flag that York rationalized away, convinced that this was simply the price of excellence. The breaking point came during a presentation to the board. Mid-sentence, York's mind went blank. Complete shutdown. Standing there, unable to remember basic facts they'd known for years, York experienced what they later described as watching myself crumble in slow motion. That moment of public vulnerability became impossible to ignore or explain away. Here's what you need to understand about burnout. It's not just fatigue. It's your body and mind staging an intervention when you've ignored all the previous warnings. For York, this public stumble forced a confrontation with a harsh truth. They would never treat an employee or friend the way they were treating themselves. The standards they held themselves to weren't just high, they were inhumane. Through work with a counselor, York discovered Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion. The findings were clear. People who practice self-compassion actually perform better, recover faster from setbacks, and maintain more stable motivation than those who practice self-criticism. Think about that. Being kind to yourself isn't just feel-good advice. It's a scientifically validated strategy for resilience. The data shows that self-compassion outperforms self-criticism in virtually every measure of sustainable success. You might be thinking self-compassion sounds soft, like an excuse to lower your standards. But here's the reality. It's about treating yourself with the same understanding you'd offer a valued colleague or friend who's facing challenges. It's acknowledging that stumbles and struggles are part of being human, not character flaws. This isn't about coddling yourself. It's about creating sustainable excellence rather than burning yourself out in pursuit of perfection. York began implementing small changes. Instead of harsh self-talk during setbacks, "I'm such an idiot," they practiced perspective. "Everyone makes mistakes. What can I learn from this?" Rather than pushing through exhaustion, they started honoring their body's needs for rest and recovery. The result? Their performance actually improved. Without the constant drain of self-criticism, they had more energy for actual problem-solving. Their team noticed the difference too. York's new approach created a more innovative, collaborative environment where people felt safe taking calculated risks. Your challenge: take 15 minutes right now to write a letter to yourself. Imagine you're writing to a close friend who's been working hard and facing challenges. Acknowledge specific efforts you've made, progress you've achieved, no matter how small, and obstacles you've overcome. Be as generous and understanding in your self-assessment as you would be with someone you care about. Don't rush through this exercise. Give yourself the gift of full attention and honest reflection. Remember, self-compassion isn't about lowering your standards. It's about maintaining high standards while acknowledging your humanity. It's understanding that your worth isn't determined by your last performance review or your latest achievement. It's about building resilience through kindness rather than criticism. This shift in mindset isn't just about feeling better. It's about performing better, leading better, and building a sustainable path to excellence that doesn't require sacrificing your well-being. Part 3. Mastery of the Unfazed Mind. Chapter 21. Embracing Life's Unpredictability. You've probably heard the saying, "the only constant is change." But knowing this truth intellectually and living it are two entirely different things. Most people nod along with this wisdom until change actually arrives at their doorstep. Let me tell you about Otto, who learned this lesson the hard way. Otto had built a thriving boutique marketing agency over 7 years. His client roster was impressive, his team was talented, and his revenue was steady. He'd crafted what seemed like the perfect business model, one that had weathered minor storms and continued to grow year after year. Then 2020 hit. Within weeks, half his clients slashed their budgets or completely disappeared. The carefully constructed foundation of his business began crumbling beneath his feet. At first, Otto did what many of us do when faced with chaos. He tried desperately to control everything. He worked longer hours, cut costs everywhere possible, and attempted to force his business model to work in a radically changed landscape. He micromanaged every aspect of his operation, desperately trying to plug holes in a sinking ship. But here's the thing about trying to control the uncontrollable. It's exhausting and ultimately futile. The turning point came when Otto stopped fighting reality and started dancing with it. Instead of clinging to his original business model, he asked himself, what do businesses need right now? The answer led him to pivot toward digital transformation consulting, helping other small businesses adapt to the new normal. This shift wasn't just a temporary fix. It opened up entirely new possibilities he'd never considered before. This is where many people miss the point about resilience. They think it's about gritting your teeth and pushing through unchanged, like a rock standing against the tide. But true resilience is about being like water, flowing around obstacles rather than trying to break through them. It's about maintaining your core purpose while being flexible about the method of delivery. Otto's story mirrors what happened at Airbnb during the 2008 recession. The founders faced a seemingly impossible situation, launching a hospitality platform during an economic crisis. Their response? They got creative, selling politically themed cereal boxes, Obama O's and Captain McCain's, to generate publicity and keep the lights on. This wasn't just a desperate move. It showed their willingness to think completely outside the box. Years later, when COVID-19 hit, they again showed this adaptability by pivoting to virtual experiences and long-term stays. Here's what you need to understand. The ability to surrender control of external circumstances while maintaining internal composure is your greatest asset in turbulent times. It's not about giving up. It's about giving yourself permission to adapt. This distinction is crucial because it's the difference between being defeated by change and being transformed by it. When you accept that uncertainty is inevitable, you stop wasting energy fighting it. Instead, you can channel that energy into responding effectively to whatever comes your way. You become like a skilled martial artist who uses the opponent's energy rather than fighting against it. This is the paradox of resilience. By accepting what you can't control, you actually gain more control over your outcomes. Your challenge today is this. Take the Airbnb approach. Write down 3 creative ways you could pivot or adapt if your current path became impossible tomorrow. Don't just think about minor adjustments. Imagine complete transformations. What skills could you repurpose? What alternative needs could you meet? What opportunities might emerge from chaos? Push yourself to think beyond the obvious answers. Remember, the goal isn't to predict the future, but to train your mind to see possibilities where others see dead ends. This is how you build true resilience, not by becoming unshakable, but by becoming supremely adaptable. The most successful people aren't those who avoid change, but those who learn to surf its waves. Chapter 22. Resilience in Relationships. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates how resilience multiplies when shared. Meech and Jen had been married for 5 years when they received news that would test their bond in ways they never imagined. Jen's diagnosis of stage 2 breast cancer hit them like a thunderbolt on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday afternoon, shattering the comfortable routine they'd built together. In those first few days, you could see their different coping mechanisms at work. Meech threw himself into research, creating spreadsheets of treatment options and survival rates, desperately trying to control what felt uncontrollable. Jen retreated inward, processing the shock in quiet moments between medical appointments, her silence growing heavier with each passing day. They were both struggling, but separately, until one evening when everything changed. "I don't need you to fix this," Jen finally told Meech, tears streaming down her face. "I just need you to sit with me in the scary moments." The raw honesty in her voice cut through all the charts and statistics they'd been hiding behind. This honest admission marked a turning point. Mish put away the spreadsheets and learned to simply hold space for the uncertainty they both felt. Jen, in turn, started sharing her fears instead of protecting Mick from them. They discovered that vulnerability, when met with understanding, becomes a source of strength, not just individually, but as a unified force. Through 12 months of treatment, they developed what I call resilience rituals, small but significant practices that reinforced their emotional connection. Every evening, they would share 3 things: a fear, a hope, and a moment of gratitude. This simple exercise prevented emotional buildup and kept them aligned through the hardest days, creating a sacred space where nothing was too difficult to voice. Here's what most people miss about relationship resilience. It's not about being strong for someone else. It's about being strong with them. When you try to shield your partner from your struggles, you actually deny them the opportunity to support you. True relationship resilience emerges when both parties feel safe enough to be vulnerable and strong enough to hold space for each other's vulnerability. It's in these moments of shared struggle that the deepest bonds are forged. Your challenge today is this: choose one important relationship in your life, whether it's with a partner, family member, or close friend. Schedule an intentional conversation where you'll share something you've been holding back. It could be a fear, a need, or an appreciation you haven't expressed. The key is to be specific and honest. Don't just say, "I need more support." Instead, say, "I need you to ask me how I'm really doing, especially on days when I seem fine." This level of specificity creates clear pathways for connection and understanding. Remember, resilience in relationships isn't about never cracking. It's about knowing you have someone who will help you piece yourself back together when you do. The strongest relationships aren't built on perfection, but on the willingness to be imperfect together. Chapter 23: The Power of Visualization. Let me tell you about Jordan, a professional basketball player whose career transformation began not on the court, but in his mind. You see, Jordan wasn't always the clutch performer he became known as. Early in his career, he struggled with free throws during high-pressure moments, letting the weight of expectations crush his performance. The crowd's tension would seep into his muscles, turning simple shots into mountain-sized challenges. What changed? He discovered the power of mental rehearsal. Every night before games, you would find Jordan sitting quietly in his hotel room, eyes closed, running through every detail of successful free throws. He wouldn't just see the shots. He would feel the texture of the ball, hear the squeak of his shoes on the hardwood, smell the court, and experience the rush of the ball swooshing through the net. He'd replay this mental movie dozens of times until it became more real than his doubts. This isn't just feel-good psychology. Your brain doesn't always distinguish between vivid imagination and real experience. When you engage in detailed visualization, you activate many of the same neural pathways used during actual performance. It's like installing a success program in your mind before you need to execute. Each mental rep strengthens these neural connections, creating a blueprint for excellence that your body naturally follows under pressure. Think about this. Olympic athletes spend countless hours mentally rehearsing their performances. They're not just daydreaming. They're literally rewiring their brains for success. When you combine physical practice with consistent mental rehearsal, you're essentially doubling your training time. Every visualization session is another brick in the foundation of your future achievement. But here's where most people get visualization wrong. They focus only on the end result without engaging all their senses. True visualization is a full sensory experience. When you're working toward any goal, whether it's nailing a presentation, running a marathon, or building a business, you need to imagine every detail. Feel the confidence in your posture, hear the sounds around you, Experience the emotions of success. Let every cell in your body vibrate with the certainty of achievement. Jordan's transformation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. His free throw percentage in clutch moments improved dramatically. More importantly, his overall confidence soared because he had already experienced success countless times in his mind. The pressure moments that once paralyzed him became opportunities to showcase his mental strength. You have this same power available to you. Your brain is waiting to be programmed for success through deliberate visualization. The key is consistency and detail. Don't just picture yourself achieving your goal. Live it in your mind first. Make each mental practice session as real and vivid as possible, because your subconscious mind will accept these rehearsals as authentic experiences. Your challenge is straightforward but powerful. Dedicate 10 minutes each day to visualizing one specific goal. Create a mental movie that's so detailed it feels real. See it, feel it, hear it, taste it, smell it. Experience the emotions of achievement. Make it so vivid that your brain begins accepting it as a reality before it happens. Push yourself to include the smallest details: the temperature of the room, the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breathing. Remember, the mind can't always tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Use this to your advantage. Your success starts in your imagination long before it manifests in reality. Every mental rehearsal brings you one step closer to turning your vision into your victory. Chapter 24. Becoming immune to criticism. You might think criticism is your enemy, but let me share a story that will change how you view feedback forever. Meet Rachel, a first-time author who poured 3 years of her life into writing what she believed would be the next great American novel. When her book finally launched, she did what every author dreads but can't resist. She read the reviews. Her hands trembled as she opened her laptop each morning, knowing what awaited her. The first few glowing 5-star ratings had her floating on air. Then came the 3 stars, the 2 stars, and finally, the dreaded 1-star reviews that felt like daggers to her heart. Amateur writing. Underdeveloped characters. Predictable plot. Each comment felt like a personal attack, not just on her work, but on her worth as a person. She spent nights questioning every chapter, every paragraph, every word choice she'd made. You see this pattern everywhere, not just in writing. You pour your heart into something, put it out into the world, and then feel crushed when the response isn't universal praise. It happens in business pitches, creative projects, even personal relationships. But here's what separates those who crumble from those who thrive: the ability to see criticism as information rather than invalidation. The masters of any craft understand this instinctively. Rachel's turning point came when she started categorizing feedback instead of absorbing it emotionally. She created 3 simple buckets: actionable insights, subjective opinions, and unconstructive noise. She developed a systematic approach, analyzing each piece of feedback with clinical precision. Suddenly, the pacing in Chapter 3 feels slow, became useful data rather than a personal attack. I couldn't connect with the main character transformed from a crushing blow into valuable market research. This shift in perspective changed everything. Instead of defending against criticism, she began mining it for gold. She discovered that even harsh feedback often contained kernels of truth that could strengthen her craft. With each revision, her writing grew stronger, more nuanced, more impactful. The key was learning to separate her identity from her output, understanding that a critique of her work wasn't a referendum on her worth as a person. Look at Steve Jobs' journey. When he was forced out of Apple in 1985, the criticism was brutal. The media painted him as an arrogant, impossible to work with leader who'd lost his way. The headlines were merciless. the industry whispers even worse. But instead of letting this feedback destroy him, he used it as fuel. During his time building Next and Pixar, he refined his leadership style while maintaining his commitment to excellence. When he returned to Apple in 1997, he was still demanding, still visionary, but with added wisdom about balancing innovation with execution. He had learned to harness criticism rather than be haunted by it. The lesson here isn't about developing a thick skin. It's about developing a smart filter. Not all criticism deserves your attention, but dismissing all feedback robs you of growth opportunities. Think of yourself as a prospector, sifting through sediment to find golden nuggets of truth. Your challenge is to become a master at extracting value from criticism while leaving the emotional baggage behind. Take that harsh feedback you received recently. Instead of replaying it as a weapon of self-doubt, dissect it like a scientist examining a specimen under a microscope. What specific elements can you act on? What patterns emerge when you compare multiple sources of feedback? What can you learn about your audience's expectations? Transform those cutting words into stepping stones toward mastery. Chapter 25. Unwavering Confidence. Let me tell you about Han, a brilliant computer science graduate who landed his dream job at a cutting-edge tech firm in Silicon Valley. Despite graduating top of his class, he found himself paralyzed by self-doubt during his first week. Surrounded by seasoned developers who casually discussed complex algorithms and system architectures, Han felt like an imposter waiting to be exposed. Every morning, he'd stare at his reflection, attempting to psych himself up, only to shrink back into his shell during team meetings. The turning point came during a crucial project when his team needed to implement a new feature using a programming language Han wasn't familiar with. Instead of letting fear consume him, Han made a decisive choice. He created a structured learning plan, 2 hours every morning before work, dedicated to mastering this new language, lunch breaks spent pair programming with more experienced colleagues, and weekends invested in building small practice projects. Here's what most people get wrong about confidence. They think it's something you're born with, or that it magically appears after a motivational speech. The truth is far more practical. Real confidence is built through consistent action and accumulated evidence of your capabilities. With each small feature Han successfully implemented, with every bug he managed to fix, his self-trust grew. He wasn't just hoping he could handle challenges anymore. He had proof. Within 3 months, he had become the team's go-to person for troubleshooting issues in that new programming language. This transformation wasn't about becoming arrogant or pretending to know everything. It was about developing a fundamental belief in his ability to learn and adapt. Han still faced moments of uncertainty, but now he viewed them as opportunities for growth rather than confirmations of inadequacy. The secret lies in understanding that confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's the ability to act despite it. Every time you push through discomfort and accomplish something you weren't sure you could do, you're laying another brick in your foundation of self-trust. Your challenge: choose one skill or area where your confidence needs strengthening. It could be public speaking, a technical skill, or even interpersonal communication. Commit to 15 minutes of deliberate practice every day for the next 2 weeks. Document your progress, no matter how small. Remember, you're not just building a skill. You're building evidence of your capability to grow and improve. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about proving to yourself that you can face challenges and make progress. Just like Han, your confidence will grow naturally as you accumulate small wins and expand your comfort zone. Chapter 26. Living with Intention. Let me tell you about Robert, who spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder at an insurance firm. The day after his retirement party, he woke up feeling utterly lost. No emails to check, no meetings to attend, no quarterly targets to hit. The structure that had defined his existence had vanished overnight, leaving him staring at his ceiling fan, wondering if this was what he'd worked so hard to achieve. You see this pattern often. People who've built their entire identity around their profession suddenly finding themselves in an unfamiliar void. They've spent decades being the manager, the executive, or the specialist, only to wake up one day stripped of these familiar labels. But Robert's story takes an interesting turn that reveals a profound truth about living with purpose. After weeks of aimless channel surfing and restless pacing, Robert remembered something his grandson had said during a family dinner. "Grandpa, what did you want to be before you became an insurance guy?" That simple question, asked between bites of mashed potatoes, sparked a journey of self-discovery that would transform his retirement years. Robert had always loved teaching others. Even in his corporate role, mentoring junior employees gave him the greatest satisfaction. He'd light up when explaining complex insurance concepts, making them accessible through clever analogies and real-world examples. This realization led him to volunteer at a local community college, helping adults prepare for career transitions. He also rekindled his passion for photography, something he'd abandoned decades ago for his real job, finding joy in capturing moments that told stories. Most importantly, he started scheduling regular video calls with his grandchildren, teaching them everything from basic math to life lessons. These weren't random activities. They aligned perfectly with his core values of education, creativity, and family connection. Each interaction became a chance to share wisdom, create memories, and feel truly alive. You might think this story is just about finding hobbies after retirement, but it's about something far more fundamental: the power of intentional living. When your daily actions align with your deepest values, even mundane moments take on profound meaning. A simple conversation becomes an opportunity for connection. A morning routine transforms into a ritual of growth. This is what separates a life of purpose from mere existence. It's not about having a packed schedule. It's about ensuring every activity, however small, reflects what you truly stand for. Robert didn't just fill his time, he filled it with meaning. Each photograph he took, each lesson he taught, each story he shared with his grandchildren became a thread in a tapestry of purpose. Your challenge. Take a moment now to identify your top 3 core values. These aren't just nice-sounding words. They're the principles that should guide your daily decisions. For each value, design one specific daily habit that puts that value into action. Think deeply about what truly matters to you, not what others expect or society demands. For example, if family is a core value, perhaps your habit is making one meaningful phone call to a loved one every evening, sharing not just events but emotions and dreams. If personal growth matters most, maybe it's dedicating 30 minutes each morning to learning something new, whether through books, courses, or meaningful conversations. The key is consistency and intention. These aren't just tasks to check off. They're daily affirmations of who you are and what matters most to you. Each action, no matter how small, becomes a step toward living your values rather than just thinking about them. Chapter 27. Turning Setbacks into Strengths. Let me tell you about Thomas, a mechanical engineer who spent 5 years developing a revolutionary water filtration system. His prototype promised to purify contaminated water using minimal energy, a potential game-changer for developing regions. After securing initial funding and building extensive buzz, the public demonstration was set. The stakes were enormous, with humanitarian organizations and environmental groups watching closely. You can probably guess what happened next. The prototype failed spectacularly in front of potential investors, journalists, and industry experts. The filtration mechanism clogged within minutes, and the purified water showed unacceptable contamination levels. The The room fell silent except for the uncomfortable shuffling of feet and the scratching of pens documenting the disaster. But here's where Thomas's story diverges from the typical narrative of failure. Instead of retreating in shame or abandoning the project, he approached the failure with scientific precision. He documented every malfunction, measured each failing component, and cataloged every piece of feedback, even the harshest criticisms. While others saw embarrassment, he saw data points waiting to be analyzed. This methodical analysis revealed critical flaws in his initial assumptions about particle accumulation and flow dynamics. Each failed test provided invaluable data about pressure distribution and filter composition. What seemed like a devastating setback was actually a goldmine of information. Every negative result eliminated another wrong path, bringing him closer to the solution. The breakthrough came 6 months later. While reviewing his failure logs, Thomas noticed a pattern in how certain contaminants behaved under specific pressure conditions. This insight led to a complete redesign of the filtration mechanism. The failed prototype had unknowingly laid the groundwork for a far superior solution. What emerged was a system twice as efficient and 3 times more reliable than his original design. Henry Ford's journey mirrors this truth perfectly. Before creating the revolutionary Model T and the assembly line that would transform manufacturing forever, Ford experienced 2 business failures that nearly bankrupted him. The Detroit Automobile Company folded in 1901, and the Henry Ford Company, which later became Cadillac without him, forced him out in 1902. Each setback could have been the end of his automotive dreams. Instead of accepting defeat, Ford meticulously studied why these ventures failed. He documented everything from production inefficiencies to management conflicts. Each setback taught him crucial lessons about manufacturing processes, team dynamics, and market demands. These failures became the foundation for the Ford Motor Company's eventual success, which revolutionized not just the auto industry, but modern industrial practices. His systematic approach to learning from failure became as innovative as his assembly line. Your challenge: think of a recent failure or setback in your life. Instead of trying to forget it, analyze it with the precision of a scientist. Write down what specifically went wrong. Be brutally honest and detailed in your assessment. The assumptions you made that proved incorrect. Challenge every preconception. The valuable data or insights this failure provided. Treat each mistake as a lesson. One specific way you can apply these lessons to your next attempt: create an actionable plan. Remember, a failure only becomes truly final when you stop learning from it. Otherwise, it's just research in disguise. Your setbacks are simply data points on the path to mastery. Collect them, study them, and use them as fuel for your next breakthrough. Chapter 28: Leaving a Legacy of Resilience. Let me tell you about Maria, a local business owner in Ibiza who transformed not just her own life, but her entire community's approach to adversity. When the tourism industry collapsed during a global crisis, her beachfront restaurant, a gathering spot for locals and tourists alike for over 15 years, faced imminent closure. Rather than shuttering her doors and accepting defeat, Maria saw an opportunity to pivot and serve her community in a new way, demonstrating the kind of innovative thinking that defines true leadership. You see, resilience isn't just about personal survival. It's about lifting others as you climb. This is a principle I've seen proven time and time again in communities worldwide. Maria converted her restaurant into a community kitchen, organizing local farmers and unemployed hospitality workers to provide meals for struggling families. She didn't just adapt. She created a movement of mutual support that rippled through the entire island, touching lives in ways she never imagined possible. What started as a crisis response became a masterclass in community resilience. Other business owners, inspired by Maria's example, began reimagining their own operations with a newfound sense of purpose and possibility. A shuttered hotel became a co-working space for local entrepreneurs, fostering collaboration and innovation. A nightclub transformed into a cultural center, offering free classes in technology and sustainable tourism, preparing the community for a more resilient future. But here's the crucial lesson. Maria didn't just solve a problem. She modeled a mindset that would forever change her community's DNA. Every morning, she'd gather her volunteer team and share not just tasks, but stories of creative solutions and small victories. She showed that resilience isn't a solitary pursuit, but a collective strength that grows when shared, multiplying its impact with each person it touches. The most powerful impact came from her transparency about her own struggles and doubts. Instead of presenting a facade of unwavering confidence, she openly discussed her fears and uncertainties while demonstrating the power of taking action anyway. This authenticity gave others permission to be both vulnerable and courageous in their own challenges, creating a culture of genuine support and shared growth. Your challenge. This week, choose one specific way to model resilience in your community or workplace. Push yourself beyond your comfort zone. It could be sharing your own story of overcoming adversity in a team meeting, including the moments of doubt and the strategies that pulled you through. Mentoring someone who's facing similar challenges you've conquered, offering both practical guidance and emotional support. Starting a small initiative that addresses a common struggle in your community, focusing on sustainable long-term solutions. Remember, your resilience isn't just about you, it's a beacon of hope for others. Every time you face a challenge head-on, you're showing others what's possible in their own lives. Your example could be the spark someone else needs to find their own strength and begin their journey of transformation. Write down one concrete action you'll take this week to demonstrate resilience and inspire others. Be specific about what you'll do, when you'll do it, and who might benefit from your example. Then commit to following through, regardless of any fears or doubts that arise. Your community needs your courage more than your comfort. Chapter 29. The Everyday Warrior Mindset. Let me tell you about Jack, a veteran firefighter with 20 years of service in Chicago's busiest station. What makes Jack remarkable isn't just his ability to rush into burning buildings. It's how he approaches every aspect of his life with the same level of preparation and mental discipline he brings to emergency calls. His colleagues often marvel at his composure, but they rarely see the deliberate practice behind his calm exterior. You see, Jack discovered early in his career that the principles keeping him alive during life-threatening situations could transform ordinary challenges into opportunities for growth. When his daughter struggled with math, he didn't just help with homework. He created a systematic approach, breaking down complex problems into manageable steps, just like he'd dissect a rescue operation. When facing financial pressure, he applied the same methodical assessment he'd use sizing up a structure fire: identify the threat, evaluate resources, and execute a clear action plan. This methodical approach turned seemingly overwhelming obstacles into conquerable challenges. The warrior mindset isn't about aggression or dominance. It's about maintaining clarity under pressure and staying prepared for whatever life throws at you. Jack doesn't wait for emergencies to practice composure. He builds it through daily habits. Every morning, he reviews his equipment at the station with the same attention he gives to organizing his family's schedule or planning his retirement strategy. This consistency, this unwavering attention to detail, creates a foundation of confidence that carries him through life's most demanding moments. This approach isn't just for firefighters or military personnel. The warrior mindset is available to anyone willing to embrace 3 core principles that have been tested and proven in the most challenging circumstances. First, warriors prepare relentlessly. They don't wait for challenges to find them. They anticipate and train for them. They understand that victory is often determined long before the actual battle begins. Second, warriors maintain emotional equilibrium. They understand that panic clouds judgment, whether facing a burning building or a difficult conversation with a teenager. This emotional control becomes their secret weapon in high-pressure situations. Third, warriors take ownership of outcomes. They don't blame circumstances or others. They focus on what they can control and act decisively. Every result, whether success or failure, becomes a learning opportunity. Your challenge. For the next 7 days, start each morning by identifying one specific battle you'll face. It might be a crucial presentation, a difficult conversation, or even tackling that project you've been avoiding. Then follow this battle-tested approach. Write down your challenge for the day with absolute clarity and specificity. List 3 potential obstacles you might encounter, considering both external and internal barriers. Outline your strategy for overcoming each obstacle, being as detailed as possible. Identify the resources and support you'll need, including people, tools, and information. Remember, warriors aren't born. They're forged through consistent practice and preparation. Every day presents an opportunity to strengthen your warrior mindset, whether you're facing life or death decisions or navigating everyday challenges. The key is maintaining this discipline even when the stakes seem low. Track your progress each evening. What worked? What didn't? How can you adjust your strategy for tomorrow's battle? This isn't about being perfect. It's about building the habit of prepared, purposeful action. Document your victories no matter how small, and learn from your setbacks. Each day becomes another opportunity to refine your warrior's edge. Chapter 30. Sustaining the Unfazed Mind. Let me share a powerful story about Marcus, a seasoned executive coach I worked with early in my career. His approach to mentoring went far beyond the typical, "here's how to get promoted" advice. Instead, he focused on building what he called perpetual resilience, a sustainable framework for lifelong growth and adaptation that would serve his clients through any challenge, whether personal or professional. What set Marcus apart wasn't just his methodology, but his unwavering belief that true resilience could be systematically developed, much like building muscle through consistent training. During our sessions, Marcus would often say, "You're not here to learn answers. You're here to master the art of finding them." He demonstrated this through his own practice of monthly self-audits, where he'd evaluate his progress, challenge his assumptions, and recalibrate his approach based on new insights. These weren't casual check-ins. They were deep dives into his performance, mindset, and impact on others. He documented everything meticulously, treating each insight as a crucial piece of data in his personal growth experiment. This method transformed how I viewed resilience. It's not about reaching some mythical state of unshakable strength. Instead, it's about developing a dynamic relationship with challenge and growth. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't plant once and expect endless harvests. You must continuously nurture, adapt to seasons, and learn from each cycle. Every setback, every unexpected frost, becomes a lesson in adaptation and growth. The key is maintaining this gardener's mindset through both abundance and scarcity. The true power of this approach lies in its sustainability. When you commit to ongoing self-reflection and adjustment, setbacks become less devastating because you've built a system for processing and learning from them. You're not starting from scratch each time life throws you a curveball. You're building upon a foundation of accumulated wisdom and proven strategies. This compound effect of learning makes each challenge progressively easier to handle. It's like developing an internal GPS that helps you navigate through storms with increasing precision. Here's your challenge. Create your personal resilience manifesto. This isn't just another document to file away. It's a living testament to your commitment to growth. Start by answering these questions with complete honesty and depth. What are your non-negotiable principles for handling adversity? How will you maintain emotional equilibrium during challenges? What specific practices will you use to learn from setbacks? How will you measure your progress in building resilience? Write these answers down, but don't stop there. Schedule monthly reviews to assess how well you're living up to these principles. Use these check-ins to refine your approach based on real-world experience. Be ruthlessly honest about what's working and what needs adjustment. Consider keeping a decision journal to track your responses to challenges and their outcomes. Your manifesto should be both aspirational and practical. It's not about creating perfect responses to every possible challenge. It's about establishing a framework that guides your actions when things get tough. Think of it as your personal playbook for navigating life's inevitable storms. Include specific triggers and responses, like what you'll do in the first hour after receiving bad news, or how you'll structure your thinking when faced with unexpected obstacles. Remember, resilience isn't a destination, it's a practice. By treating it as such, you ensure that each challenge, whether big or small, becomes an opportunity to strengthen your emotional and mental mastery. This consistent practice builds a foundation of strength that will serve you in every area of your life. The key is to embrace the process itself, finding satisfaction in the small improvements that compound over time. The challenge ahead of you is clear. Take 30 minutes today to write your resilience manifesto. Make it specific, make it personal, and most importantly, make it actionable. Then, set a recurring monthly reminder to review and refine it. This isn't just another task, it's your commitment to lifelong growth and adaptation. Your future self will thank you for taking this crucial step toward building unshakable resilience. Remember, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The same applies to developing your resilience practice. Conclusion. This moment isn't just about finishing a video. It's about embracing a fundamental shift in how you approach life's challenges. Remember where you started. Perhaps you were seeking answers, feeling stuck, or simply ready for change. Now look at how far you've come. You've learned to own your reality, to transform setbacks into stepping stones, and to cultivate unwavering resilience in the face of adversity. But this isn't the end of your journey. It's merely the beginning. The principles and strategies you've discovered here aren't meant to sit on a shelf gathering dust. They're tools waiting to be wielded, wisdom waiting to be lived. Your growth matters beyond your personal sphere. Every time you choose resilience over resignation, every moment you face fear with courage, you create ripples that touch countless lives. Your example becomes a beacon for others, showing what's possible when we refuse to be defined by our circumstances. Now it's time to take these lessons into the world. Start small, but start today. Share your insights with a colleague struggling with self-doubt. Mentor someone who reminds you of where you once were. Let your journey inspire others to begin their own. Remember, true transformation isn't about perfection. It's about consistent progress, about getting up one more time than you fall. The strategies and mindsets you've learned here aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical tools for daily living. Your resilient spirit has always been within you. This video simply helped you recognize and strengthen it. Now, it's your responsibility to nurture this growth, to continue challenging your limits, and to share your light with others. The world needs your resilient spirit more than ever. Your unwavering mind, your disciplined approach, and your hopeful outlook aren't just personal assets. They're gifts you can share with everyone around you. So step forward with confidence, knowing you have the tools, the mindset, and the inner strength to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Your journey of growth continues, and your example will light the way for others to follow. Thank you for listening to my audiobook. You've taken the first step. Now go write your story, one action at a time. You've got this.